10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Submit to Reality. We have a lot to talk about. I'm sorry about the break, but this will probably be the longest break that we take. I know it's only been a couple of weeks, but a lot's been happening, and we have a lot to cover today. So let's get started, Doug.
All right. Where are we going with TNA first, Bill?
Yeah, it's it's going to be a rambling on because there's so much that's happening within TNA that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I think we first should hit the point that TNA let go of Jay Lethal today. It makes no sense.
Yeah, they're making room for the younger talent.
Yeah, and Hogan.
As if Jay Lethal's younger than I am.
Yeah, and Hogan's taking it to another level, brother.
Yeah, so Jay Lethal doesn't fit into their master plan, brother.
Well, and the thing is like, when is it that you've seen other employees or wrestlers or whatever you want to call them tweet and show their disgust about what's going on? So obviously there is severe tension inside that locker room.
Exactly. You had Max Buck and Jeremy Buck and Amazing Red all complaining about the release of Jay Lethal. So that just tells you where the locker room morale is going to be. That just tells you that people just go to work there to make a little bit of money, to have their payday, to have the reduced schedule, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously their bigger stars are on way more house shows, so they don't have a reduced schedule, but I'm just talking in general. So I don't know. I mean, it's just another move by TNA that just, you think after a pretty decent pay-per-view like Lockdown that, okay, well, maybe they're going to try to put more emphasis on stuff, and then they release Jay Lethal. It's just like, it just tells you right then and there that they don't have their head on straight. They're very inconsistent. They've always been inconsistent in a lot of ways. But now more so than ever. I mean, these are some dark days in TNA.
I agree. And I mean, I watched Lockdown, and the thing is I want to get this straight to the point. Lockdown, when it comes to the in-ring action, was far better than WrestleMania. I enjoyed it far more than WrestleMania. WrestleMania was not even that good. It was pretty much bad. There was one match to really talk about, and that's it. In my opinion, Lockdown, I thought the X Division match was good. I thought Joe and the Pope was good. I thought Angle and Jarrett was really good, and I thought that the main event was pretty darn good. And so that's 4 matches right there, and even the main event, the Lethal Lockdown is what I mean by the main event, and even the one for the title, it was all right. Definitely got hokey once Hogan came out, but it was all right. It wasn't bad. So it's 5 matches that pretty much were definitely watchable and enjoyable, and a lot of them were good. I would definitely say the pay-per-view is worth watching. But here's the thing, Bill. And this is what it is always like with a TNA pay-per-view. I think a lot of people like the Smart Marks and all these other people that watch TNA, that hate TNA, will automatically call Lockdown bad because the booking is so terrible. And I understand that, but I've just grown to accept the fact that TNA's booking is absolute garbage. It's horrible. It makes no sense. It's dumb, and I just watch it for the in-ring action. There's no reason why Jeff Jarrett should beat Kurt Angle. There's just no reason in that whatsoever. That makes no sense. And the way that they did it was hokey, and Karen was involved, and it's silly, and
it doesn't really get you excited about the direction of their company either. Like, I know that they're probably good for a one-show thing, for effort, for big pay-per-views, but when it's over, were you excited about the future of the company? No. You weren't. Back in the day, when the young stars were at the forefront, like your AJ, like your Jay Lethal, like your Christopher Daniels, like your Samoa Joes, like your Motor City Machine Guns, like your Beer Money, that's when people got excited, when they were the focal point of the show, because it felt like there was a youth movement, like there was a future. And now you don't have that anymore, and when the things are over, it's just like, oh, great, we have to deal with more of the network crap. We've got to deal with Hogan probably challenging Sting, and Hogan can barely walk, and Sting has to wear a T-shirt to the ring. I mean, it's just atrocious stuff.
Well, and the thing is you look at a group like Fortune, okay? If you had AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, beer money in a group, which they do have, but it's almost like they don't even exist because the booking is so terrible. But we're talking the elite. We are talking the cream of the crop of pro wrestling in one faction, and people don't care. That is how bad booking is in TNA. I mean, if those guys all of a sudden say CM Punk fired all the guys in Nexus, said, see you later, and then all those guys came out and joined Nexus with CM Punk, I guarantee you that place would go crazy. And maybe not right off the bat, but you give Nexus with those guys and with CM Punk a full month of TV time, they will be so over it's not even funny. You know?
TNA does not allow people to care about anything because they change things so quickly and so often, and things just don't make sense and are all jumbled together. I mean, that is why they're in the position that they're in, and they want to potentially change their name from what we're hearing from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. I mean, like I said, I don't always believe everything that comes out of the Observer, but, you know, if they do potentially want to change their name, my opinion is why? I mean, you're already way late in the game. You don't have an identity as it is. You've been struggling to find your identity for like the past 6 years.
Yep.
So why now would you change your name and try to rebrand yourself? If anything, you want to keep the name and just do a big marketing campaign and try to rebrand yourself that way. But I don't think changing the name is a good idea.
I don't either. And then, I mean, okay, and people are like, you know, you say TNA doesn't make sense, but like explain to me what's been going on. Okay, you had the X Division match. And you know what's funny, Bill, is I watched this match and I just forgot who won the match because I don't even care. You know, I think it's one of the Bucks. I think it's Max.
Max.
I think Max won. But it's a completely pointless match. But okay, Max Buck wins, dude. The women's match, you know, when it was the hair and the title on the line, but yet if the other girl lost, then she just lost the title, but she wouldn't lose her hair. You know, only Mickie James would lose her hair if she lost. That match was like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all.
And we're going from the same thing where they got controversial heat for having the main event only last like 2 minutes, yet they still keep doing this on title matches. Now, granted, the women's title means absolutely nothing, but there you go. Okay.
But a lot of their titles mean nothing, so I guess it just fits right in the mold.
Right? And then you've got the Angle and Jarrett thing. I mean, like, Karen had to spray him in the face with like mace or whatever, that she had to hit him with a cage door, and it
almost like ruined a good match.
Absolutely, it did.
But then Angle has the audacity to go on Twitter and say it was better than his match with Shawn Michaels. Are you freaking kidding me?
Yeah, I think it's time to say that Angle definitely has an alcohol problem. I mean, because there's no way.
He has some type of problem.
And it's just ridiculous. Okay, and then Hogan interrupts, and I'm not talking about, you know, like when a guy runs down to the ring, okay, and he hands off a lead pipe, normally his music doesn't hit, you know?
Right.
Normally it isn't this big, giant entrance, and all of a sudden, like, they're having a match, and then all of a sudden Hogan's music hits, and he's slowly walking down to the ring with a lead pipe.
Were the guys, like, staring at him at all, or were they just still wrestling like nothing was going on?
I think Rob was staring at him, but the other guys were wrestling or something like that. And then he hands off the lead pipe. And what does RVD do? You know, like, I thought maybe he was going to kick the pipe from his hand or something. RVD grabs the pipe and throws it against the cage at Hogan, but he just throws it at the cage. I mean, it means nothing. It's still, you know? And then Sting ends up winning, and then Hogan's like, "You're on my time, Sting, brother. We're gonna do this, brother." And it's like, oh God, no. Oh God, no. And you can see where they're going with this. You can see that they're clearly trying to basically say that, look, nobody in Immortal can get the job done. So we're going to have to bring out of the grave the immortal Hulk Hogan and face Sting. And this is the funny thing to me about Sting and Hogan. They've never had a good match, ever. And I'm talking in 97, they had the biggest buildup of all time, of any feud, anything, and the match was a complete stinker, okay? And then their rematch at Super Brawl was a complete stinker.
Did you ever think, Doug, that in 1997... at Starrcade, I believe it was 97.
Yeah, it was.
13, 14 years later, they're going to have a freaking rematch. I mean, that's...
And what cracks me up is they actually think that people are going to see like a commercial for Sting versus Hogan probably at Slammiversary, and people are going to be like, oh my God, I've got to order this. No, they're scratching.
I mean, the thing is they were viewed as old then.
Yeah.
Back in 97.
Yeah.
So what makes you think that people are going to pay for it now? Are you kidding me? No.
Is 58 years old with like 6 back surgeries in the last 6 months, and Sting is 51 years old, and they've never had a good match together. And not only that, I'm baffled by this. I don't like. Did you watch the documentary with Hogan where the doctor basically said that like he could never wrestle again, and this moron is all of a sudden like hit the gym and whatever he's done, and now he's all shredded and ready to get back in the ring, yet the guy can barely walk? I mean,
yeah, I guarantee you there's no such thing as a run-in with Hulk Hogan, so we can just scrape that right now. That's why they had to play his music. I mean,
yeah, it's a walk-in. It ain't a run-in.
It's a crawl-in.
Yeah, I'm good. Give me a couple of minutes, brother, but I'm coming.
Yep.
You know, and then they've got this idea that basically all the athletic wrestlers do not draw money. So we're just going to get them out one by one. I mean, what's the point of bringing back Christopher Daniels when you have him lose to Bully Ray, when you have him lose to Gunner? Well, why'd you bring him back? And then what makes them look so stupid is they still let him be an ROH, and he's having match of the year candidates, and then he goes to TNA and jobs out to these guys that are way beneath him.
I guess what their mentality is like, okay, you can go let him main event Ring of Honor, but then when he comes to TNA, he can't even hang with the mid-level guys.
And then,
like I think they think that's what, you know, it's making Ring of Honor look bad, but in turn it's making their product look bad.
Yeah, and
because he's out going out there to showcase, you know, his talents for Ring of Honor every month.
And then TNA is so stupid that they're actually going to advertise that if you watch their web thing on their thing where you can watch all their pay-per-views and stuff, then now you can watch the Asylum Days. Why on earth would you let people watch that? Because they're going to see guys that they still have in the company go completely balls to the wall and have these matches that are just unreal. They're like, watch the Asylum Days. Like, this company makes no sense whatsoever. And then Hogan is talking about how he's taken over creative, how he needs to get Macho Man off the couch because he can bring so much to the table. Like, Macho Man literally looks like Santa Claus right now. Like, you could just put the red hat on him and he would look like Santa Claus right now. Like, he could probably audition for another Miracle on 34th Street movie, and it would be legit. Like, this thing is ridiculous. Yeah. And as fans, like, you see that they still have AJ Styles and Kaz and Beer Money and Samoa Joe and Sabin and Shelley and the Pope and a ton of talent. And yet we have to deal with Anderson wanting his title shot over and over again.
And the guy sucks it up in the ring. You can say whatever you want. He's stale. He's not that great in the ring. Get rid of him.
Anderson is so boring at this point. He's so stale. And then freaking Hogan and Bischoff talking about the network. Dude, the network gimmick was done in ECW, and not just that, it's also being done on Monday Night Raw right now as the secret Raw GM. Like, you don't even have any original ideas.
And then they released Jay Lethal and debut another Mexican masked wrestler to, like, I guess, you know, counter the whole Sin Cara thing that WWE is doing. Like, why do you even have to watch the WWE program? They're entertainment. They have soap opera demonstrations on pay-per-view now. That's what they are. They are entertainment. No more wrestling. So why would you even want to pattern yourself off after their product? People are already pissed off at them anyways. They want an alternative, and you're not giving it to them.
But not just that, Bill. Sin Cara, like, he's been built up really well. Amazing video packages, huge production behind him. He's got a cool look. This guy is like purple and yellow with streamers all over him. I mean, like, he looks like the generic version. He looks like almost a piñata at a kid's birthday party. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. And they bring him out there to the Impact Zone. It's just so silly. This thing is so stupid. It's so frustrating. And like I told Bill, I think something's seriously going down. We haven't heard from Dixie in a long time, and Hogan keeps tweeting about how he's taking over creative and all this other stuff. They're talking about changing the name. Like, I don't know if there's a buyer that's interested in buying this thing. I don't know if Dixie's trying to sell it. Because really, after the Jeff Hardy incident, we have not heard from Dixie Carter hardly at all.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, she's not going to be the secret GM or the network either, which I totally think is going to be Mick Foley. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, I'm almost afraid I'm wrong because I don't even like the Mick Foley idea, but I'm afraid TNA is going to come up with something worse. Like, dude, what if it's Russo?
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Russo will be the secret network, and
I already don't watch it, so
Hogan will be the champion. That is what's happened to TNA. Like, yeah. I'm serious.
It's a sad story, man.
More respect for anybody than Hulk Hogan. Like, that guy to me, like, dude, you can testify. When we were watching in WCW, I was a huge Hogan fan.
You still have the Hollywood Hogan shirt?
Yeah, I do.
Back in WCW?
Yeah, I do. And I was mad that the other Hogan shirt, you know, the one that actually had him painted on that he always wore and stuff, it was a one size fits all, and it didn't fit me. So I was pissed about that. But yeah, I was a huge Hogan fan. All NWO for life, all that stuff. I was a huge Hogan fan. When he signed in the WWE, I was so excited. I mean, I saw him at Backlash when he beat Triple H and became the champion. I felt like I witnessed one of the greatest moments ever.
That was amazing.
Because Hogan won the title for the last time, and it was just unbelievable. The crowd went completely crazy. And this guy has turned out to be such a piece of trash, and it's so disappointing. It's so disappointing. And not just that, like, you gave them so much credit because you looked at him like the Babe Ruth of wrestling, or that Vince and him, they both had the same type of mindset, and that, you know, it really wasn't Vince that made Hulk Hogan all that. Man, Hulk Hogan doesn't have a freaking clue about professional wrestling.
My thing is everybody wants to talk about, like, the veterans sticking around and they truly love the business. That's why they don't want to leave. They still want to be around it, you know. And to me, it's like if they truly love the business, they would care about the future. They would care about establishing new stars, and they would get off the TV. That's my thing. It's like if you truly love the business, you would want to help establish a future for the business and not hog the spotlight. You know, and that's exactly what we see all these veterans doing. And then you've got other fans that have, like, the audacity to sit here and say, well, if you fired all the veterans, then the young guys wouldn't draw any money. Well, how do you know that? They haven't been given the opportunity. AJ Styles gets cheered everywhere he goes because of the legacy that he left in that ring from like 2002 to 2006. You know, that guy busted his butt and was known as like the Michael Jordan of pro wrestling. That's why people still cheer him today based on his past accomplishments. Not because of him fighting over Karen Angle with Kurt Angle.
Yep. And the thing is, too, I mean, you could have gone to a WWE event in 2006, 2005, and you could mention TNA and people hardly would know what TNA was, but if you mentioned AJ Styles, they knew who he was. Like, he was just over nationally. Everybody knew how good he was. And now it's to the point where, you know, he's a mid-carder for fortune. And it's just so stupid. It's so stupid. And not just that, like, he comes out in Lockdown and now we get to look forward to a Bully Ray AJ Styles feud. Like, what is that going to do?
Yeah, and I mean, to me,
about that.
Yeah, and I think Bully Ray's a great heel, no doubt about it. He's a great heel. He cuts great promos. He's believable. But you just, as far as him not being in a tag team, I think it's just too late for him. You know, he's been around for too long. So people aren't going to really buy into him as like a credible main eventer at this late in his career.
I'm a firm believer in the pro wrestling business. There is a thing called too much damage. If too much damage is done, you can't bounce back from it. I believe that the Big Show is in that category. I believe that Kane is in that category. I believe that Bubba Ray is in that category. I believe that Tommy Dreamer is in that category. I believe there's a lot of guys in the category that once you've been the same thing the way that you have been for years and years and years, you just can't be. It's like JBL. JBL had way too much damage done for him to be anything, and the WWE still did it, and it was a horrible disaster.
And for me, like, at least mixed martial arts has evolved and the fighters have evolved and they're forced to, you know, either retire or evolve their style. And that's one thing that I am very appreciative for mixed martial arts, because you see new eras being ushered in all the time. You know, guys constantly one-up each other. And in pro wrestling, it's unfortunate that there's not a similar path being taken. You know, there's plenty of wrestlers that are past their prime, but they can stay as long as they want because apparently people think that they actually draw ratings. And it drives me crazy.
Yep. Okay, well, since we were talking about legacy in the ring, I think it's a perfect time to talk about Edge. I was very taken back that Edge was retiring. I have been predicting, I even posted on Twitter that WrestleMania next year would have been Edge's last WrestleMania, because you could tell that he was definitely getting burned out and he was ready to retire.
And I remember you calling me, and you told me, you're like, hey, man, Edge retired. I'm like, what? It's not a work? Like, I was very surprised that he retired because it was just out of the blue, I don't think anybody expected it. But the thing about Edge is he was smart. Why? Because he saved his money. Also, because he knows that if he continues to wrestle in the ring, that he's going to do too much damage to his body to where he's not going to be able to bounce back from it. And he may have already done a little bit of that, but at least now he knows, okay, well, it's time to stop. It's time to quit while I'm ahead. And there's so many guys like your Hulk Hogan's and like your Ric Flairs and stuff that have done so much damage to their bodies that they're pretty much deemed worthless now. Yep. With Edge, I don't feel that from him, and the fact that he retired when he did just gives me more respect for him because he didn't go out there past his prime. He didn't go out there and ruin his legacy every night he stepped foot in the ring. So to me, I have more respect for Edge that he stepped away when he needed to and while he was still having good performances.
Edge retired at 36 years old. 36 years old. That's unheard of. Guys like Matt Morgan and AJ Styles are coming close to 36 years old. I think Morgan's like 32, 33. AJ's probably up there with that 33, 34. I mean, Edge retiring at 36 years old, but I'll tell you what, I'm thankful for it because I don't have to beg Edge to leave anymore. And I'm not saying I was going to at this point, but the way the wrestlers have taken this thing is they basically stay way, way past their prime, and it gets to the point where you have to beg them to leave. Edge is going to leave at the point where I'm actually going to miss him, where I wish he could still stay. You know what I'm saying? And I really respect Edge for that. And Edge is a perfect example of a guy that, in my opinion, would have never gotten over if he was not allowed to deliver in the ring. The way that the WWE was back then is they let you go out there, and if you had potential, then they gave you the ball, and you were able to show everything that you had. And Edge is one of those guys. I thought Edge sucked. I hated Edge. Edge was one of those guys to me that was just corny and cheesy. And when he turned, I liked him. I thought he was all right as a heel, but man, when he was a face, he was so corny and cheesy and like, Angle, you suck. I just didn't like him at all.
Yeah, I didn't really buy into him either, but when he turned heel and he had his WrestleMania match with Foley and had that big feud, that to me is really where, it kind of turned the corner for me, is just buying into him as a legitimate main event guy, a legitimate single star.
Well, honestly, when he did the Angle feud when we were at Backlash,
Backlash,
feud, and then he went to Judgment Day and shaved his head and all that stuff, and then he tagged with Rey Mysterio. And all that SmackDown time where he just started having these great matches, and he wrestled Eddie at SummerSlam.
Yep, and who was booking at that time?
That'd be Heyman.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I mean, Edge looked like $1 million, and it got to the point where it was like, wow, Edge is really good. There's no denying it. And then we went to the point where Matt Hardy, and we hated him, and we thought he was the biggest piece of trash. And after the Matt Hardy feud, he pretty much looked superior in every way after that. And you just kind of grew respect for him. And then he ended the Cena era, turning his Money in the Bank and winning the title.
Was fantastic.
That was done really well. And, Edge is just one of those guys that he definitely gave it his all. The TLC matches, amazing tag teams, amazing singles matches. But if they never gave him the opportunity to deliver in the ring, and this is what I've been saying about all these young guys right now, they're not allowed to deliver in the ring. And if they're not allowed to deliver in the ring, you're never going to take them seriously, and they're never going to get over. That's just the bottom line, and that's why the WWE system is so flawed right now, is because guys cannot go out there and get themselves over. It's like Ring of Honor right now. Do you think that Eddie Edwards would be a believable champion if he went in there and had Headlock Fest and matches that were 10 minutes? Nobody would buy into him. Eddie was given that title because he busted his butt. Didn't he wrestle with that broken arm in a ladder match?
Yeah. He wrestled with a broken arm at Ladder War 2. It was at the Grand Ballroom, and it was against Steen and Generico, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So it was freaking insane, and he was doing it with one arm and he took a spine buster on the ladder with a broken arm. I mean, there was a lot of things.
And
that he
I'm
did
not
with that
necessarily
spine.
saying you have to wrestle with a broken arm, but
No.
I am saying that you have to give it your all. I am saying that you have to show your worth, and in the WWE, you're not allowed to do that. And until that changes, none of these guys are getting over.
And before that night, too, let me just clarify. Before that night, Davey Richards was looked as superior to Eddie Edwards in every way, shape, and form by the wrestling fans. But after that night, people were chanting Eddie Edwards. People had grown respect for Eddie Edwards because he still went out there and performed. And the wrestling fans chose Eddie Edwards to be a star. And so that is why he is the world champion. People choose stars in Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor doesn't make the stars, the fans make the stars, as I've said many times, and that's where the WWE has screwed up. They've stopped letting the fans choose.
I agree. It's the same thing in mixed martial arts. If a guy goes out there and has an amazing fight or looks overly impressive, he gets himself over.
That's right.
And the people start to get behind him. You think that George St. Pierre got where he was at because he just went in there and had boring fights? No, George St. Pierre destroyed people.
And that's the thing, Doug. And that's the thing. The two of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts right now, Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre, both kings of their respective divisions. Can they cut a promo?
No,
No.
not at all.
They couldn't cut a promo to save their life, but
So
why
true.
do people pay to see them? Because they are great at what they do.
So true.
Why can't pro wrestling be the same, people? Because if you can go out there and perform to the highest level, to the best of your abilities, guess what? People are going to buy into you.
And
And
the
that's
thing
all
is,
I can
too,
say.
is not only can they not cut a promo, but Anderson Silva is so bad on the mic that he makes you less interested in the fight. He will have somebody talk all this trash, and then he will not say anything back. And he has a very high-pitched voice. Anderson is not a guy that you think, oh man, he said this and he said that and he's going to kill him. It's just when Anderson gets in that cage, he's a totally different animal. And then you see his skills and you're like, oh my God.
He blows everybody away. I mean, I never in my life expected him to knock out Vitor. I know we're kind of going away from this, but I'm just saying people, thousands and thousands of people pay to watch him on pay-per-view because they want to see what he can do next, see what the next challenger can try to dethrone him, So, I mean, it's the same in pro wrestling. And you can argue with me all you want, but Jim Cornette, Paul Heyman, Gabe Sapolsky, many people have said it within the business that the UFC is the best pro wrestling going today.
Yep.
And it's obviously an acronym, but it's a fact. The UFC has their stuff together, and pro wrestling has fallen way behind.
Absolutely. And so is boxing. And it's the exact same thing. WWE and boxing, to me, are almost identical. There's so many different divisions. You've got SmackDown, you've got Raw, you've got this champion, you've got that champion. None of the belts mean anything. And there's a bunch of matches that people don't want to see. It's the same exact model, and they're both going downhill. I will give Raw somewhat props. I've been watching Raw. It's been all right. It's actually been watchable. I only fast forward through the Cole being knighted segment. I couldn't put myself through that. But I really liked the R-Truth Morrison thing. It was just different. It was also pretty edgy. I was really surprised that R-Truth actually smoked with the whole PG thing. So I was like, oh, okay, that's different. And I think R-Truth booked right. And I really think he needs to change his look. Because the thing that I don't like about R-Truth right now in the WWE is he is R-Truth from TNA 100%. Same music, same look, same everything.
Yeah, he definitely needs to change his look. I would even change his finisher, change his music.
Change his music, change everything about him. Make him look totally different. But I love his voice because it's very raw, you know. He could really play a good heel because he's just like, what's up? You know, like he just has that like, what's up, dog? You know, like it's that raw, that rawness, you know.
That's right.
And so I dig that. I think he could be a good heel. I don't necessarily know how they're fitting in Morrison and Cena and Miz all in a cage. I have a feeling maybe it could be like R-Truth and Morrison in the match and then Cena and Miz in the cage and go from there type deal. But we'll see. I'm actually somewhat looking forward to Extreme Rules. I think there might actually be some pretty good matches. And, you know, because of certain matches like the ladder match, I really don't see Christian having a watered-down ladder match. I just don't see it. I think him and Alberto Del Rio could probably have a really good match. And I'm hoping, praying, that they let these guys go out there and deliver.
Well, you know, we got to make sure, Doug, that before we even start praising this match, if anybody starts bleeding, they're probably going to have to stop the match.
Right. And another thing is, dude, I really have a feeling that Christian might win this belt. And the reason I think so is because it's kind of like when Eddie died, Ray got the title. And I'm not saying Edge died, but it's just it's that thing right now. People want to say thank you, Edge. And for them to feel good about Edge leaving, they would feel so much better if Christian won the belt. And WWE might give that to him. Sometimes in the business, weird circumstances, sometimes you get what you want because of it, and sometimes you really get punished because of it. But this one, I really think that Christian might win the title. Not that it really means a lot in my eyes, but I think to Christian it does. I think, you know, he'll have the WWE, the World Championship, and he also carried the TNA Heavyweight Championship, and I think that he can retire pretty much fulfilled on his wrestling career after that. So hopefully Christian can win the strap.
Yep. And I think, too, you know, that's kind of like a culmination of all of his hard work because I know, you know, back in, I think what was it, 2004, 2005, before he left, like we were really rooting for him to win. You know, we thought that he was like a viable main event guy, you know, and he never got the opportunity.
Well, remember when he started talking crap on Cena and it was the people were really behind him. I mean, he was really being over, and I remember he came out to the Garden and like, dude, he was really over, and they did nothing with him. It's so pissed.
I know.
And then
they spent a lot of time on him too.
Yeah, shortly after that, he went to TNA, you know, and I think he totally proved his worth in TNA, and it still bothers everybody because now everybody knows the guy can be a main eventer, and the WWE just chooses not to give it to him. So it's frustrating, but hopefully, you know, he can win that strap and move on. That pretty much covers the WWE thoughts. There's one rumor, you know, people think or somebody's claiming that I really don't like. And basically they're saying that Truth Slayer got us into Ring of Honor. I want to squash that right now. Right now. I think that going to Ring of Honor live got us into Ring of Honor, you know. I think that definitely Truth Slayer had some valid points when it came to Ring of Honor. And I think that when he said something was a pretty good match, it normally was. So I give him credit for that. But by far, he did not get us into Ring of Honor.
And for me, like, I started watching ROH before, you know, T-Slay came on YouTube. You know, I was watching, like, their pay-per-views on demand, and I was watching their stuff on their YouTube channel, like their build-up for the Ladder War and all that type of stuff. And I was watching matches here and there, but I never really got into the product because I didn't think you could follow it, you know. And now, obviously, I've learned different, and I follow them even if they don't have a TV deal because now I'm very invested in their product. Especially, I think, too, like, some of the booking was a little weird back then. Like, I thought some of it was amazing, but some guys were just scattered, like, on the undercard, so I really didn't, like, get really invested with what was going on in a lot of ways. But I'll tell you, some of the matches that I saw, like the Roderick Strong no DQ match, I don't remember who he was with, Eric Stevens and Roderick Strong. They were doing it for a title, and they did a fight without honor, and he did like a superplex off like a 20-foot ladder through two tables. Like, when I watched that match, it was one of the stiffest matches I'd ever seen, and it was just so crazy. It's like some of that stuff, you know, really got me buzzing, like, about ROH, but then after that it would die because, you know, their next pay-per-view wasn't for a few months. So, like, I never really got invested in it until we went to Super Card of Honor 4 and Take No Prisoners, because Super Card of Honor 4, I didn't even know who Davey Richards was. You know, I wasn't familiar with what Kenta's accomplishments were over in Japan and in the States. So, you know, to see that match live really converted me right then and there. And not just that, you know, we got to see Chris Hero, we got to see Nigel McGuinness, Jerry Lynn, Bryan Danielson. I mean, the list goes on and on, but that is what really converted me to ROH. Going to that live experience and having that. And, you know, I wish I could go to ROH every time now.
Yeah, I got a funny story for y'all. We were at the Booker T autograph signing.
Oh, don't tell them that.
Oh, no,
please.
this
For the
still,
love of God, don't tell them that.
This still eats at me so bad.
Leave it out. Oh, Jesus.
We were at this Booker T autograph signing, and this thing was huge. Like, this was at the George R. Brown Convention Center, and I mean, there was like, I don't know how many people, Bill. How many would you say?
There were probably a good 1,200 to 1,500 people. I mean, there was a lot of people there.
I'd say there was even more than that. There were a lot of people.
Probably.
Like, I would say probably like 3,000 or 4,000 maybe, because it was everywhere and it was scattered. It was an all-day thing. Anyways, we're like deciding on who we want to meet, you know, buying our tickets and crap, and that's how you did it. You buy your tickets. You were like, you were thinking, is this person worth $10? Is this person worth $10 or whatever? Kenta walks in with a Ichiro jersey. And I was like, Bill, that's Kenta. And he's like, yeah, it is. But I didn't want to bother Kenta, and I didn't really know how to approach him. But I knew who he was. I didn't know a lot about him, but I knew who he was. And he goes in, and people kind of come up to him and want to start taking pictures and stuff. So I was thinking, well, you know, it's okay to do that. And for whatever reason, I decide not to. And then, dude, like, that same night, we go to that ROH show. And what was funny is I didn't know much about ROH. Like, I saw some highlights of Davey and Kenta, like, in a tag match or something, and they were, like, kicking the crap out of each other. Yeah. And I was pretty excited for it. And I knew the buzz around the building basically was Davey and Kenta. But I heard a guy on the phone, and he was talking to his buddy, and he's like, you know, these are the biggest shows of the year. I always go to Super Card of Honor. I'm from Detroit, you know, whatever. And I was like, holy crap, this isn't even a pay-per-view, and we have people coming to see this show. So then I started to get really excited. Dude, Davey and Kenta was like the most craziest match, and I was so blown away by it. And I will never forgive myself for not being able to meet Kenta. Like, man, that pissed me off. And not just that, I was really into Nigel at the time. Like, I thought Nigel was awesome. I still think Nigel's awesome. Desmond Wolfe, we miss you. I hope you're okay. But like, I definitely did not know Ring of Honor that well. And so, if Truth Slayer did such a good job of selling it, he never did to me, because I never understood a lot about Ring of Honor. And we made a lot of ignorant comments about Ring of Honor, mainly because we felt like TNA had taken their whole entire roster and was displaying that talent on mainstream television that was easy to follow. Of course, we were wrong, and Ring of Honor definitely was able to recreate superstars just like ECW was. And I'm telling you guys, if you go to a Ring of Honor show, you will leave a fan, I guarantee it. There's no way you won't, especially if you're probably around 16 to 34. I think you'd absolutely love it.
I even think the older generation likes it too, because it like reminds them of the old NWA, like the matches between Flair and Steamboat and Harley Race.
Ring of Honor is like NWA mixed with ECW. It really is. But without the extreme weapons. I mean, sometimes they have that, but it's more about wrestling. And
absolutely,
Ring of Honor is unbelievable if you go see it live. I'm telling you, I can't tell you enough. If there's a UFC in Houston and there is a Ring of Honor, it's really based on the card of the UFC if I would go or not. And it'd have to be a really good card for me to miss Ring of Honor.
And you want to know why? Because of the fact that Ring of Honor doesn't have house shows, people. I don't want to hear anybody use the word house show when they're talking about Ring of Honor, because Ring of Honor runs a DVD business. Every show to them is a big show. Every show to them is like a pay-per-view. So when you look at their cards for their shows, they're loaded all the time, from top to bottom in most cases, because of the fact they take such pride in their in-ring work. And a lot of the matches of the year that people talk about, we have to wait for the DVD to come out, because basically it wasn't on iPay-per-view. Now, fortunately, most of the matches are on iPay-per-view, but I'm telling you, they have a lot of amazing matches that are not not shown on iPay-per-view, that are strictly available on DVD. So I definitely encourage you to, definitely go to their site, look at their DVDs they have up, because I guarantee you all of them are worth buying.
Well, and then there's one more thing. We constantly get bombarded by people saying that we don't stick to anything, we're wishy-washy, we don't believe in anything, they hate this now all of a sudden. It's like, dude, shut your mouth, okay? For one, we have always said that whatever delivers, we're going to watch. If the WWE decides to change their in-ring product and be a little bit more edgier on the storylines, I absolutely will support them. 100%. If TNA gets rid of their stupid, retarded booking crew and their horrible management, then I absolutely will support them. Ring of Honor, they bring it, we support them. It's that easy. We don't have any loyalty to any company. Who's to say that Ring of Honor wouldn't be bought out and then all of a sudden have these retarded, horrible matches? If that happens, are we going to still be promoting Ring of Honor? Absolutely not. It's that simple.
And if the UFC started having lackluster fights or not showcasing their talents to the best of their abilities, then guess what? We're probably not going to order UFC either. It goes along with everything. If you do not deliver up to your capabilities, then we're probably going to stop spending money on your show. Is everybody going to have a lackluster show every once in a while? Yeah, you betcha. And I'll still support the company if they have 1 or 2 lackluster shows every once in a while. But if they are consistently letting us down as fans, then we will stop buying the product, plain and simple.
Absolutely. That's 100%. All right, let's talk about MMA, Bill. Covered pro wrestling. I know there's a lot of people that want to know my MMA thoughts, so let's talk.
Yeah, Strikeforce, man, a couple of weeks ago, that show was amazing. I can't tell you how many times I watched freaking Gilbert Melendez just freaking demolish what was his name?
Kawajiri.
Sorry, there's so many Japanese fighters, it's hard for me to register everybody's name. But dude, Kawajiri was a legitimate opponent too. Everybody was looking forward to this fight, and they thought that it would be competitive. I felt that it would be a competitive fight between Kawajiri and Melendez.
I thought that Kawajiri might pull the upset. I mean, I was like,
yeah.
Melendez has been gone for a long time, coming off a long layoff. Kawajiri's been pretty active. He beat freaking Jay-Z and he beat Josh Thompson. I'm like, he's got a real good shot at.
And he steamrolled him. Melendez steamrolled him
honestly,
so bad.
I don't think I've ever seen someone get their ass whooped that bad like Gilbert did to Kawajiri.
And I mean, the way he finished him too, and the crowd was so hot, dude. They were popping huge.
Ups to San Diego, man. That crowd was off the chain. That thing.
It was like a Hammerstein ballroom for MMA.
It really was. So loud. And Strikeforce also delivered fights that really got them pumped. I mean, Gilbert came in there, and you really have to think that Gilbert is arguably the #1 lightweight in the world. And I think
he's proven it time and time again.
And he's constantly gone out there. He's avenged his 2 losses, and he's constantly gone out there and given it his all. He's not one of these guys that just goes for points or whatever. He goes out there and he goes to war. He's there to finish you. And Gilbert is the man. He's improved so much. I mean, I remember Gilbert back when he was in the WEC, back when he fought a little bit in Pride. And, I mean, he had a lot of potential, but you could also see a lot of holes in his game. He was a little bit chunky. His cardio wasn't always the best. And now, Gilbert is a monster. Gilbert is ready for the mainstream. He's ready to be the #1 guy. And, boy, did he put on a performance on Strikeforce.
And Paul Daly and Nick Diaz, my God, what a slugfest, what a war that was. And that got me so pumped after watching that fight, dude. I thought Daly had him beat, but Daly just gassed bad.
Yeah. But I also give it credit, too, because I really think that working the body is so underestimated, and Nick really worked his body, and I think it just took the wind out of Daly. Getting hit in the ribs like that, and not just that, in the face, too, I think that Nick rocked him in the chin, Nick rocked him in the body. The thing that I love about Nick Diaz is, okay, this guy could easily take Paul Daly down and try to tap him out. That's what he could do. That's what he could do, the whole fight, basically, is just try to tap him out, and eventually he'd get him and he'd tap him out, just like Jake did to Paul Daly. But he says, screw that. He says, look, I'll take what you have best, and I will throw down with you, and you might hit me, you might rock me, you might cut me up, but eventually I'm going to break your will, and then I'm going to beat the living crap out of you. And that's what Nick does to everybody. Nick is such an exciting fighter, and Nick is one of those guys that, like, you're going to have to kill him to beat him, man. He's a warrior, absolute warrior. And
But yet he wants to go to boxing. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm sorry. I don't have any interest in seeing Nick Diaz box anybody. Like, this guy is at the prime of his career. He's, better than he's probably ever been. And you want to go to boxing? Are you kidding me? You're still not proving yourself as like the top pound for pound 170 in the world yet, You still have a lot of guys that you can fight in the UFC if they decide to bring you over there. Granted, he's done a great job. He's done a tremendous job establishing himself as a legitimate 170 pounder and one of the best. But he still has a lot of fights left, and I hope that if he does come out with Shields in Canada, that he gets the itch and he decides to stay in MMA.
Yeah,
because boxing doesn't have a future.
I think the biggest problem is he thinks Jake's going to win the belt. And if Jake wins the belt, he's not going to fight Jake. So it's like, what does he do then?
Right.
And he's not looking to be the second best. And he's looking for big paydays if he's going to put it out on the line. And I think this is also mixed martial arts' fault. I think it's time to start paying these guys. These guys should not be leaving, especially top-tier fighters, be leaving to go to boxing for a better payday. If these guys are top-tier fighters, then they need to be paid like it. I think that Nick...
And I agree to a certain extent, too, but you also have your sponsors and other things where you can make additional money in addition to just, the fight itself.
Okay, Nick made $175,000 for that fight. I think Nick deserves around $500,000 to $600,000.
Right. Absolutely. He's not getting a $3 million payday or anything like that, but yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
I'd say with sponsors and everything, with the contract, if say he got $600,000, I'd say he'd probably walk away with like 1.5. And then the thing is too, is like Joe Rogan says, is once you go to the UFC, you get a piece of the pay-per-view cut. So if Nick Diaz starts making like $2 million a fight, which I think he's more than worth, because not only is he one of the best, but he also puts on some of the best fights. I mean, in my opinion right now, Paul Daly, Nick Diaz is fight of the year so far. I think nobody can touch that fight right now. Maybe Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard, but really the fight died down after the first round. But those two fights, both those first rounds, which all Paul Daly and Diaz went, but both of those fights are unbelievable fights. So yeah, I definitely think that that Nick shouldn't go into boxing. From what I hear, he's probably going to fight like a Jeff Lacey. He wanted to fight Fernando Vargas, but Vargas, I guess, still has medical problems. And Vargas, man, honestly, the Fernando Vargas fight to me makes sense because they're both Mexican, and Vargas has this huge Mexican pride. I think that they will talk so much trash. Vargas is a big trash talker, and Vargas is way past his prime, and I actually think Nick could beat him. And it would make Nick look like $1 million. But
I heard that Vargas can't even pass like his physical. Is that right?
I don't know, because Vargas is on Twitter all the time talking about his comeback, so I have no idea. And from what I hear, like, this whole thing is still shaky. Like, Scott Coker said he's going to sit him down and he wants him to fight Tyron Woodley. So, and then, like Joe said, he understands why he wouldn't want to fight Tyron Woodley. And like Joe also said, Tyron Woodley is a great fighter that nobody really knows. And but there's no payday involved because nobody knows Tyron Woodley.
Right.
But
it's a dangerous fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and if Nick lost to him, it'd make him look horrible.
I agree. I think that if Nick Diaz and BJ Penn would be freaking amazing. I just say, or Nick Diaz.
You want to talk about trash talk? My Lord.
I'd say like Nick Diaz maybe and Carlos Condit, something like that. I think those fights would be great for Nick, but you got to pay Nick, and Nick's worth the money in my opinion.
He's proven it by far.
Absolutely. And also, they made the announcement that Randy Couture's last fight will be this UFC. I know it's hard to believe because he's retired before, but I really feel like this is it for Randy. He's looking into acting and things like that and training other people and opening.
And he's taking a long layoff, and he's going against a very dangerous Lyoto Machida. Do I think he can beat him? Yes. Do I think he will beat him? I don't know. It's kind of up there because Machida's coming off of 2 losses too.
Exactly. He's coming off of 2 losses, and so I think that he really doesn't want to lose again. And I think that he's going to do everything he can. But also, when that happens is a lot of times guys fight tentatively. You know, they're afraid to take risks because they don't want to lose. And a guy like Randy is not one of those. I mean, honestly, Lyoto definitely has the stand-up skills to rock him. Also, I think Lyoto's wrestling is underrated. Tito had a really hard time taking him down. He took Tito down. He's also been able to avoid takedowns many times before. I know Shogun had trouble taking him down for a while. You know, he's not bad. I'm not saying Shogun's a great wrestler, by the way, but he's got some decent wrestling skills. He trains with AKA a lot on his wrestling, which means he trains with Cain Velasquez and those guys. So, I mean, he's going to be ready for Randy. I really don't see Randy winning this fight. So
yeah, it's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of other fights on that card that I'm excited about. Hopefully we'll have the opportunity to preview it next week before the show actually goes down. But do we have anything else we need to cover?
I'm sure there's stuff that we
yeah. I mean, we've got there's a lot of stuff we'll probably end up forgetting. But if we forget, I guess we'll just cover it next week. So.
Oh, by the way, like we've been questioning a lot about the donation thing. Look, I mean, it's there if you want to help us out. If you don't, it's not. We're not going to hate you for it. We're not begging for your money or anything like that. The bottom line is that it costs extra money to run this podcast. So if we can get help from the fans, then why not ask? But if you can't, it's no big deal. We're not like begging for your money and all that stuff. People take it way too far.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate any contributions that are made. You guys help keep this show going. We appreciate you tuning in. And I know, like I said, it was, a couple of weeks before we had a podcast up, but this will probably be the longest break that you'll ever get with the show. I mean, it may be a week here or, maybe a couple of weeks every once in a while, but we're in this to be consistent. I know there's a lot of people that have questions and concerns and want to be able to call into the show, and believe me, we are working on that. We're working on getting it going. We just want to establish a base first, and then we'll start implementing guests and try to get wrestlers on. That's been more of a challenge than what I thought, but hopefully we'll be able to get wrestlers on the show and fighters even. I'd love to have some mixed martial artists on the show as well.
Well, and the thing is if you guys know how to contact people, if you guys have any ideas or whatever, man, help us out. Let us know. I mean, we're all here basically the bottom line is we're all fans of all the same things, and me and Bill find great enjoyment being able to talk about our interests. And not just that, sometimes it helps just to vent. Sometimes it helps just to spit it out and say how you feel, and then find out how that person feels. And you just learn. That's why I like people to talk to me on Twitter. I like to hear people's thoughts. I don't like insulting people, and I don't like them insulting me. But just have good conversation and what other people think. And maybe I'll think some people are right. There's a lot of times where people will comment or message, and I'll be like, that's a pretty good idea, or wow, I never thought of it that way. Like we're all here basically to share our common interest, and this is a way for me and Bill to do this on a consistent basis. I honestly think the YouTube thing is just kind of played out. I don't even know if we'll do videos anymore. I mean, I guess at certain times we will, but
yeah, I think we'll do it on occasion. I don't think it's definitely gone or anything, but I think every once in a while, when we get together, if we have time, we'll hit up a video and delay the podcast for a week or something. That way, everybody has an opportunity to listen, and we may implement these shows on YouTube once we run out of room to put them on our Podbean site.
Yeah, and I agree to that. It's just for me, like I think it's gonna have to be something that there really requires a video for,
Right.
But
exactly.
Just right now, just us, basically talking about MMA and wrestling, I don't really think it's that important. But, if there's something that we really get excited about, we'll definitely post a video.
Absolutely, and feel free to post your comments, thoughts, ideas, anything that you feel like, would make the show better. We're definitely open to any feedback. It's always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on podbean.com. We really appreciate everybody listening this week.
All right, guys, take care and follow me on Twitter.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.